Jaron Boots Ennis. This guy is one of the most naturally gifted, athletically gifted welterweights I've seen in a while. And in my opinion, he's the most athletically gifted welterweight I've seen since Prime Manny Pacquiao back in 08, 09. Yeah, I would actually go that far. This guy is that cold. He's that good. Athleticism, hand speed, coordination, agility, balance, the switching ability, the angles. Yeah, like he's a talent. He's a very, very good talent. And I'm excited to see what the future holds with him. I'm excited to see how he'll do in when he steps up. The main criticism I give of him is his defense. I think he relies too much on his reflexes to avoid shots, whereas he needs to have a bit more preemptive defense, more defensive responsibility, rather than waiting to see the shot coming and then relying on your reflexes solely. He needs to have more of that, more defensive responsibility, more preemptive defense, better anticipation, I would say. Um, Not so much anticipation, but just preemptive defense rather than just relying on his reflexes. That's the main criticism I give of him. And that's why I think he's starting to get hit a bit more as he stepped up a little bit. The Lipinets fight was a great performance, but defensively there are some holes there for better fighters to exploit. And even he stopped Delorme in the first round, but he got hit with 2 flush shots in that fight as well. So defensively he can improve, but I do think that as he steps up in competition, I do think his defense he might tighten up the defense. He might not, but then again I think he will tighten up the defense. Because maybe it's one of those things where he doesn't respect these opponents' power and their ability. So he doesn't mind taking the odd shot here and there. But the problem with that is that you don't want to get into bad habits. I mean, because boxing is muscle memory, or largely. A large part of boxing is muscle memory. So when you're being defensively irresponsible in these fights, you might carry that over into subsequent fights when you step up. You guys see what I mean? So you don't want to get into bad habits. So yeah, that's what I'd say about Boots. He's a very good talent, and like I say, he's the most athletically gifted welterweight I've seen since a prime Manny Pacquiao. I'm not saying he's gonna be as successful as a Pacquiao, or I'm not saying he's gonna go down to be all-time great. It's too early to say, but I'm gonna make a bold prediction here. The prediction is I think Ennis will become, at the very least, he will become a unified world champion. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I do think Ennis will become a unified world champion at the very least. He'll become a unified world champion. Not saying when he'll do it or anything like that. I'm just saying in his career, like before he retires, at the very least, Jaron Boots Ennis will become a unified world champion. That's my prediction. So, because I think he's got the talent to do it, and on top of that, so far he's very dedicated. He's 24 years old. He's still young, and as he's had these small step ups, he's still continued to impress me. But also, I do want to break down his style a little bit. Not too much, but I do want to break down his style a little bit. And the best way to describe his style is very, very fluid and athleticism based, I would say, if that's even if that's even a way to put it. But yeah, athleticism based, I would say his style is very, very fluid, lots and lots of flair, extremely coordinated, a lot of switch hitting. Some people have compared him to Crawford, but I wouldn't really compare him to Crawford in my opinion. He's very, very different to Crawford, I would say. Crawford is a bit more technical than him, I would say. But Crawford is not as athletic as Ennis. I love to see the fight, though. That's a great fight. I love to see it. But I want to see Ennis against someone like a Danny Garcia, someone against a guy, someone like that first, before I see him fight one of the top guys. Ennis, he counterpunches well. He's a good counterpuncher. He can lead with pretty much any shot in the book. He's got impeccable hand speed. Although he's very fast, he's not like an Amir Khan. Amir Khan, one of his flaws is that one of the reasons why you can time him is because he doesn't vary his punch cadence. Right? He doesn't vary the cadence, the timing of each punch within the combination. So when he steps up against good opponents, they can time him because they know the cadence he's coming in with, i.e. the Danny Garcia fight, i.e. Canelo Alvarez fight. You can time him because he doesn't vary the cadence of his combinations. My point is, he doesn't vary, Ennis varies the cadence of his shots more. I saw that in the Lipinets fight. That's one subtle thing as well. It's a small subtle thing, but at a high level in boxing, so subtle things that make a big difference. It's the nuances that you have to, it's the nuances that are the difference between winning and losing fights. So one thing that Ennis does really well is that although he's got a very good hand speed, he varies the rhythm and the cadence of his combinations, making them more difficult making them difficult to time. So yeah, he's got tremendous hand speed, like I've mentioned, but he varies the punch cadence as well. He pivots really, really well. But he's got one thing that is quite similar to Josh Kelly, whereby he is quite in love with his athleticism, similar to how Josh Kelly is. But the difference between Ennis and Kelly is that Ennis is more offensive than Kelly. He throws a lot more combinations, etc. And I'd say he's more athletically gifted than Kelly. But one thing he's got in similar to Josh Kelly is that they're both quite in love with their athleticism. And that can be a criticism sometimes. That can be a disadvantage sometimes if you're too in love with it. So that's one thing that Ennis does need to Ennis does need to change. Don't be in love with your athleticism too much. But overall, he's a talent. He's a very, very good talent, and I'm excited. I'm excited for his next fight. Hopefully, he fights again early next year. Hopefully, he doesn't have too much of a layoff because he knocked his opponent out in the first round. So I'm not expecting too much of a layoff. Hopefully, he doesn't have one. And hopefully, he steps up again, fights someone like a Ugas or someone of that level.